The truth will set you free. People had no idea that every night, I was fighting a war under my blanket. No guns, no knives. But that radio turned me into a traitor. The moment the southern voice slipped into my ear, I could no longer remain their teacher. The first time I heard it was on a winter night in Hamhung, when the power went out as often as the wind blew. The walls of the teacher's dorm beside the school were thin when the wind pushed, the bookcase shivered. That day, I was writing students' names on the roll sheet when my pen stopped. Someone was whispering at the end of the corridor. At first, I thought it was static. But it was a voice. This broadcast is for our brothers in the North who long for freedom. My heart seemed to stop. In the world I knew, the word freedom did not exist. Textbooks taught us it was a poison used by the enemy. But this voice was different. Warm. It sounded like comfort, not command. I stood up slowly. Following the sound, I saw a thin strip of light leaking through the teacher's office door at the corridor's end. When I opened it, my colleague, Yun Sok, was there. He had a blanket over his face, clutching a small radio beneath it. The light flickered, and his shoulders trembled. "Comrade Yun Sok, what is that?" He looked at me. His eyes were ice. "Be quiet. It's a South Korean broadcast." With that single sentence, the blood in my body rushed backward. South Korea. That was the enemy we were taught to fight. But he was listening to it. Just then, the voice from the radio continued. "God has not forgotten you." That one sentence ripped through my ear. God. That forbidden word rang strangely inside me. I froze on the spot. I couldn't breathe. And strangely, I wasn't afraid of the word at all. Yun Sok slowly turned the volume down. "You don't hear this with your ears," he said. "You hear it with your heart." His words lingered in my head for a long time. I said nothing that night. But I couldn't sleep. The inside of my ears felt hot. The after sound of the radio was still there. The next day, the teacher's office felt the same as always. Children laughed as they built snowmen. The principal hammered ideological study. But that voice from yesterday kept breaking in. When I opened a book, it slipped between the lines. "God has not forgotten you." It felt as if the sentence was calling my name. Near the end of lunch, Yun Sok came close and whispered, "What you saw yesterday, don't tell anyone." "Of course not." "But why listen to that?" "To survive." "To survive?" The words sounded strange. "We lived in a world where you had to kill faith to live." Yet he said faith was to survive. From that day on, I waited every night at the end of the corridor for that light. When the radio turned on, the office became another world. The broadcast always began at the same time, 1110 p.m. After a short burst of static, a quiet hymn flowed out. The voice was softer than the wind and warmer than winter. I found myself waiting for that hour. And at the same time, I was afraid. Listening to that radio meant betraying the system. I knew it. But the voice remained inside me like a seed. Small, unseen, but undeniably alive. A few days later, a strange rumor spread through the school. "They say a signal detection truck roamed around last night," students whispered. My heart pounded when I heard it. I saw Yun Sok's face in my mind. That night, he hesitated should he turn on the radio or not. Sitting beside him, I spoke quietly. "Let's not listen tonight." He looked into my eyes and slowly shook his head. "This is a sound that can't be stopped." The light on the radio came on again. From within the static, a voice. "Even in the dark, he is with you." At that moment, there was a heavy thud outside. Someone knocked on the door. The knocking didn't last long, but it was enough for my heart to slip from my fingertips. I reflexively lowered the volume, and Yun Sok pulled the blanket further over us. We never turned on the fluorescent lights. Only the faint winter moonlight slid down the window frame and cooled the edge of the desk. Again thunk. Someone slowly tried the knob. The lock was old. Every turn released a smell of iron dust into the room. My breath stuck to it and wouldn't let go. "Don't open it," I mouthed. Yun Sok gave the slightest nod. The knob turned halfway and stopped. Footsteps moved away from the door and halted at the landing. A window at the corridor's end creaked. Wind, or a person, we couldn't tell. We became so quiet we couldn't even hear each other's breathing. The radio carried only a thin, Pillow soft hiss. We waited. Time didn't move on the clock, it moved in the ear. My ears tired first. Cautiously, I got up to check the window. Along the wall facing the yard, a long black shadow lay on the wire. Far off, a light drifted down the road and vanished. Just then, a short beep came from the radio's belly. Yunsuk drew a sharp breath. We looked at each other. It was our agreed cue. The broadcast had locked on. Someone had reached the same frequency. Now do we listen? I asked. Under the blanket, he nudged the volume a hair higher. The voice was still gentle, as if calling a single person by name. Wherever you are, we know. In cold and in isolation, the truth will not abandon you. The word truth felt less foreign than yesterday. The rim of strangeness thinned, a faint warmth spread inside it. I stayed standing to listen. If I sat, I felt my resolve would collapse. Outside, an icicle fell. Tiny fragments scraped down the sill. The cold in the office had piled up heavy, yet the sentences from the radio lay over it like a thin blanket. My ears felt no longer part of my body. The ears believed first, then the eyes, and last the heart. The reversal scared me. We were taught the order eyes, ears, mouth, report. Tonight it was ears, heart, silence. The broadcast shared a short testimony: someone crossing a winter river, a small hymn sung to keep from crying in the dark, unseen hands that kept watch all night. The places didn't match our region, yet somehow the faces of the children I taught merged with the story. The way they wiped their noses with their cuffs, how the longer winter dragged on, the more they forgot how to laugh out loud. The radio gave it all a name not forgotten. That name did not exist in any report. Then a low engine hum rolled in from far away. Headlights drifted along the road beyond the school wall. A rectangle of light slid across the classroom floor. Yunsuk jerked his hand back and froze. A tremor passed over his knuckles. Signal detection, he whispered. I stared at the radio and counted in my head. 1, 2, 3, 10. If you switch on and off in intervals, they'll catch the pattern. We had to stop completely or drown ourselves in noise. Volume 0, I breathed. He shook his head, and instead feathered the tuning dial. Static clouded the waveform. The voice was still there. Strange. In that small box, I felt not technology but consideration. Someone trying to find us in a way that also hid us. Footsteps approached the main entrance. 2, no. 3. The spacing of the boots was steady. Guard post breathing. They paused at our office door, then went to the science lab across the hall. A door opened, glass cases rattled. Drawers slid, windows thumped. We were as still as a single body. The radio was almost inaudible now, yet the mere fact that it existed kept us together. Silence was the rock, the radio was the water flowing beneath it. That night I learned silence has two faces. The silence the system demands grows darkness of informing and surveillance. The silence we chose saved one another. The same wordless state, but opposite ends. For the first time, I framed the question clearly inside me: which silence will I choose? The steps faded toward the end of the corridor. As tension ebbed, warmth returned by degrees. Yunsuk let the blanket drop and exhaled. Let's stop here for tonight. I nodded. When the radio clicked off, the office snapped back into a heavy, worn world. There was no trace to prove those sentences were true. And yet, it felt as if nothing had remained and everything had remained. We dismantled the radio. Batteries under the chalk box. Antenna laid in the groove behind the window frame. The body wrapped with the back page of a geography text. Make it sound like a toy, look like scrap. We checked the switch one more time as we left. 0. A perfect 0. I walked the corridor. The wood grain underfoot nudged my soles. The night air was clear, but a low tone still lingered in my ear. Back at the dorm, my coat lay neatly on the bed, the manager Granny's habit. I lifted it and felt a small note in the pocket. A short line in pencil. 1110, paper at the window. I checked the sill at once. A thin slip wedged outside. The air between brought its smells: cold dust, the touch of a hand, old books. Only one line on the paper: you are not alone. I closed my eyes. The sentence swung once in my chest and found its place. Next day, word of an electrical inspection spread. Science lab, broadcast room, teacher's office, 3 spots for focus checks. The manager sealed the doors with temporary tape, proof of who touched first, who opened first, who entered first, who switched on first. I pictured my name at the end of every first, and my tongue went dry just from the thought. By noon the principal called a staff meeting. Lately he weighed his words. There have been reports of unnecessary machine noise at night. A school should behave like a school. The small smile at the end felt colder than a threat. Smiles outlast orders. When it ended, Yunsuk looked at me. He didn't speak, he just nodded. Night would come again, and the sound would begin again, both a promise and a warning. At dusk the wind suddenly changed direction. Hong-Hung's winter curled through alleys and settled on the yard. I stood at the office door. The seal was intact inside and out. I didn't open it. I went to the window instead and tapped the glass with my palm. Once, twice, 3 times, the rhythm of that short cue from last night's radio. No response. I lowered my hand. Tonight, silence had to be on our side. Back in the dorm, I pulled the blanket over my head. Like bringing yesterday under the covers, I closed my ears and opened my heart. City noise drifted away. The small ripple at the edge of my breath came close. Then, a faint vibration traveled along the wall. There was no radio turned on, but I heard it. No sound, only meaning. I began to understand it. Wait, keep, hide, 3 words taking turns. At 1110 that night, I didn't turn the radio on. I cracked the window and listened to the wind. The voice from last night wasn't there. In that empty space, I arranged the words I had to give myself: my order, my report, my promise of silence. It wasn't the silence of fear, but the silence of readiness. Whatever came, I would not run. Near dawn, wheels grazed the stairs. The detection truck passed again. A red flash brushed the window crack and was gone. I closed my eyes and repeated last night's sentence: "You are not alone." As I repeated it, the noise inside my ears shrank until it was almost nothing. In its place, something clearer settled in, not sound, but resolve. I called it a signal. And until morning arrived, I said nothing more. That silence was the first language prepared to keep us alive. For the 3rd day, the signal detection truck circled the school. On the snow-covered yard, black tire marks lay in perfect rings. A trap drawn on white. After that, Yunsuk grew even quieter. He spoke little in class and flinched at children's chatter. But within that silence wasn't mere fear. There was something like resolve. I tried to avoid him, but the more I did, the deeper he lodged in me. The aftersound of the radio wouldn't leave my ears. When night fell, the voice began again. It was there without being there. Off, and yet still flowing. As if another frequency had opened somewhere inside me. One day, there was a meeting. A state security liaison stood in the office. Snow still clung to his boots, dusted with a red grit like dried blood. He set a file on the desk without a word. Illegal transmissions were detected in this area recently. We will start by investigating educators. The principal's face didn't change. Our school is exemplary. That won't be happening here. Too smooth, so smooth it felt false. The agent stared at me a moment. Then the corner of his mouth twitched. That tiny smile cut me. He wore the face of someone who already knew. That night, Yunsuk came to me. "Let's not listen tonight," he said first. But his eyes said, "We can't." I looked out the window instead of answering. The yard had frozen. The sky was covered with sullen cloud, not stars. "It's your work now." "What do you mean?" "I'll be questioned soon." Words jammed in my throat. He held a small slip of paper. "Next signal under the desk in the office." He pressed it into my palm. "If I'm gone, this has to remain." Ice ran through my chest. "Then let's destroy it. If they catch it, we die." He shook his head. "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid nothing remains." After that, he disappeared. He didn't show up for work. No one looked for him. The principal said briefly, "He's on sick leave." But we all knew sick leave in our country meant only one thing: a vacation that never returns. I hesitated for days, then finally went to the office at night. The seal had been replaced with a fresh one, but one corner was slightly lifted. Holding my breath, I eased that edge up. When the door opened, old dust stung my nose. Under the desk, just as he'd said, lay the radio. Wrapped in cloth, the marks of his hands worn into it. I lifted it carefully. When I pressed the button, a short thread of static flowed. Chzzzzz. The sound felt more like longing than fear. I didn't turn on the lights. By moonlight I turned the dial. No lock. I turned and turned until suddenly a low male voice poured out. To the brothers and sisters hearing this broadcast, we are praying for you. Tears sprang up. Someone whose name and face I did not know called me brother. No one in this world had ever called me that. Then footsteps in the corridor. Irregular, heavy, pausing at fixed intervals. I couldn't turn the radio off. My body wouldn't obey. The door opened. Fluorescent lights snapped on. "What are you doing?" The state security man's voice. His eyes dropped under the desk. The radio light still hadn't gone out. I couldn't speak. He came closer. "That's Southern equipment, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I drew in a breath. Something broke inside me. He grabbed the radio. "Was this in your hands?" Before his words finished, static hummed again. "The truth can never be bound." As the sentence cut the air, his hand froze. He listened a second. A flicker in his eyes. Only a heartbeat long. Then he slammed the radio to the floor. Metal rang, sharp as a blade. "This is treason." Heavier than interrogation. I offered no excuse. Yunsok's last line surfaced. "It's your work now." He yanked my arm. My wristband back cuffs bit my skin. I looked back to the end. The radio lay broken on the floor, but the antenna still pointed at the sky, as if still sending something. Dragged outside, I dropped to my knees in the snow. The air thinned. Snow stung my face. Then, deep in my ear, something sounded again. Very faint, leaking from the shattered seams. "He is still listening." That sentence became my last memory. The snow had stopped, but the air still smelled of metal. I was pulled into the building on each landing. The frozen railing leached heat from my wrists. The deeper we went, the simpler the sounds became. Footsteps aligned into one beat, hinge squeaks laid short over it. Then, all at once, the sounds ended. The agent matched his toe to mine and pushed the door. A narrow room. A smooth table. One chair. A bulb overhead. The light was bright but not warm like powdered magnesium flung over snow. Brilliant, but freezing on the skin. The cuffs came off. Leather straps took their place around the chair arms. My hands were fixed in the shape of a freedom that wasn't. Light pinned my brow. My lids stung. I lowered my head a little. The shadow of my nose sat small on the white tabletop. For a while, nobody spoke. Silence questioned me first. The door opened. A man entered. Black coat, thin mouth, the habit of holding papers upright. He didn't sit. He set the papers on the table's corner and tapped the edge with his pen. Talk, talk, talk. 3 beats. Then his voice. "Let's make this simple." The Southern broadcast. "Who turned it on?" I didn't answer. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. Telling a lie would have been easy. Say I don't know. But even if that saved me today, it couldn't erase the sound left in my ear. To erase that sound, I'd have to disappear first. He dragged the chair and sat. The legs scraped in elongated dissonance. He studied my face, then tapped the paper where my name was written. Why would a quiet teacher break the office seal at night? When I kept still, he tried a different angle. "That look on your face. It wasn't the first time you'd seen the radio." The word look entered the interrogation and, with it, the room felt briefly human. Shame warmed my face before pain did. My expression. The surprise I failed to hide. He hadn't seen the device, he'd seen me. "Who taught you? The cue, the time, how to hide it." There were words in my throat, but they vanished before becoming sound. "Yunsok, right?" My face locked. Using an aim cut faster than a blade through skin, straight to the heart. He read my reaction and underlined something. "He's already been talking to us." It could have been a lie. I prayed it was. But whether it was true or not wasn't my work now. My work was to decide me here. I forced my formless thoughts into a sentence. "The radio." I turned it on. He paused his pen and looked into my eyes. After a moment of stillness, the corner of his mouth lifted. Not triumph, not mockery. He slid the paper toward me. "Good. Then it's easy." "Who listened? How many times? Where else can it be heard?" And who is this God they talk about? On that last word his tongue faltered a little. Even his mouth knew God was forbidden in this room. Speaking it drew an invisible crack across the air. Children catch colds often in winter. I began with something that wasn't an answer at all. When the city goes dark, a window becomes a mirror. If you stare at your own face too long, you lose yourself. So I steadied my breath. We needed a sound. He frowned. The gap between his questions and my answers was too wide. Excuses don't last long. It isn't an excuse, I said quietly. Someone was calling my name. In there. He fell silent, then leaned back and let out a short laugh. It didn't last. The laugh turned into the sound of a drawer sliding. He placed a thin metal box on the table. Inside was a small bulb on a device. He flipped a switch. The bulb blinked in a fixed rhythm. A frequency counter. Like your heart. When it lights, a sound is flowing somewhere. You can steal a man's breath. You can't fool a machine. He covered the bulb with his fingers. The flesh glowed red. The red stabbed my eyes. He pulled his hand away and asked, "Did the truth set you free?" My heart stopped for a beat. Where had he heard that? The radio? A report? Or was it one of those phrases made to fit anywhere? He read my face and, without smiling, added, "I once had a radio too." The temperature in the room shifted by a thread. For a second, I saw the shadow in his eyes waver then close. He tapped the blanks on the page with his pen. Names, places, times, cues. "And what you know about this God?" I looked at the paper. There was space for letters, space that could save me or erase someone else. My fingers couldn't hold the pen. The blood drained from them white. The bulb above swung once the current stuttered. Light flickered. Everything, table, chair, breath, returned a half beat late. In that half beat, what did I see? The wind. On nights without the radio, I cracked the window and listened to wind. The wind spoke without words. It carried news without sound. "You are not alone." A slip of paper wedged in the sill. The penciled letters pressed deep. The hand that wrote them. I didn't know where that hand was now, but what it meant had reached this room. I lifted the pen and set down a single line. No names, no places. I don't yet know his name, but his voice made me breathe. His eyebrows rose. He read it, then looked at me again. For a while, he said nothing. Only the bulb's faint hum shook the air. He put the pen down, leaned in until his breath nearly touched my cheek. "Made you breathe good. Then this is where you stop." He knocked on the door. Another agent came in. The cuffs clicked shut again. The scrape of steel was short with a long aftertaste. I stood and said, "There is only one thing I can say." My voice shook. The content did not. "I will not inform." He smiled a quiet smile now. Not victory, not mockery, only the face of someone who already knew the outcome. "If you don't inform, no one will remember you." The words pierced my heart. Which is more cruel, to forget, or to be forgotten? Memory is a blade, oblivion, a cell. At the threshold, he asked one last thing. "The God they spoke of on the radio, is he here now?" "Yes," I answered. Short as breath, bigger than the room. In the corridor, a string of ceiling lights pulled me along from above. With each step down, the light broke and rejoined. Break, join, break, join. In that rhythm, who I had been blurred, but what I chose grew clear. "I will not inform." It was prayer without words. In a small waiting room at the end of the basement, they left me alone for a while. Beyond the small window, the edge of dawn stained the dark. Between night and morning, black and ash, surrender and confession. I could neither sit nor stand. I counted breaths. 1, 2, 3. The numbers stacked. Fear did not shrink, but the wish to run changed shape. Not to flee, but to endure. After a time, another agent tapped my shoulder. "Move." One word, order. I lifted my head. A light pierced my pupil for a blink. It was cold, thin, fragile, like it might break, yet I felt it wouldn't go out. Even if I did, someone, somewhere would turn a radio back on under that light. Then I knew light is another form of sound, sound another name for faith, and silence the oldest way to guard them both. I stepped forward. A single point inside the encirclement. But a point was preparing to become a line. Even if no one saw, even if someone erased it, even if no one recorded it. As long as I could breathe, I would witness. With words, or with silence. Either way, the light would go first, and I would walk after it. Dawn was thin as glass. Light neither entered nor left, it hung in the air. I walked the narrow corridor. Each iron door shut took a layer of air away. Concrete bit cold through my soles, but somewhere beneath, my heart still beat. The escorting agent said nothing. He always walked at the same pace. Following his back, I heard the sound of myself disappearing. Surprisingly quiet. Death approached with less noise than I imagined. The basement door opened outside. Air seeped in. It was snowing. I lifted my head for a moment. The snow fell in silence. Dawn was slate gray. A crow cried once in the distance, and silence settled again. He led me inside a small walled yard. A few soldiers were already there. All their faces were covered. I could not see their eyes. As they did not look at me, I did not look at them. I needed no name, nor rank, nor honor. Any last words? His voice was flat. I steadied my breath and said, "He has not forsaken me." I couldn't tell if he nodded, or if the wind simply shifted. Snow thickened. Amid it, I realized the radio was gone, but the sound remained in me. The transmission ceased, but the truth did not lose its bearing. The muzzles rose. Cold metal cutting air. I closed my eyes slowly. Deep in my ear, the voice came one last time. "He is listening even now." A flake touched my cheek. Fear slipped away in that instant. My heart beat slow but certain. One beat. Then another. Not death's rhythm. Liberation's. And then the world went quiet. Did the shots ring out? I don't know. I only know light broke open somewhere. Small, quiet light. As if someone, somewhere, turned the radio on again. Dawn was no longer glass. It shattered, and morning poured through the pieces. The snow had stopped, but the air still held the after resonance of a wave. After that day, nothing at the school changed. Children's footsteps still echoed in the halls. The principal repeated the same slogans. Ideology runs deeper than blood. Whenever that line spilled from the speaker, I looked to the window. The sky was empty, the wind was quiet. But in that wind, something was surely mixed. Someone called my name. It sounded like a voice from memory and at the same time like a breath close to my cheek. I didn't answer. I closed my eyes instead. A minute vibration drifted into the inner ear. It wasn't a transmission. It was memory. At night, a light still showed in the office window. I didn't ask who was inside. Sometimes, when the wind shifted, a faint sound rose from under the desk. Chzzzzz. From that single thread, I knew the world had not been completely cut. One day, an old envelope appeared on my desk. No sender. Inside was a worn prayer slip. A line in red ink. "The truth can never be bound." I traced the sentence slowly with my fingertip. In that moment, all sounds in me stopped. Heart, breath, time. Only that sentence remained. What cannot be bound? It was not only faith, it was the conscience of the one who survived. When I look up, the night sky is still scattered with stars of frequency. Somewhere among that light, perhaps the radio signal still drifts. Someone, right now, may be hearing the same sound. And they too will know. Truth is not switched off. It is passed on. Each night before sleep, I crack the window and I listen. I hear nothing. And I know there is a wave inside that silence. There is a name inside that wave. And that name can never be erased. Thank you for watching this story.